Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Excuse me. Up first here, hazardous weather graphic. Got a high wind warning out here for portions of the central panhandle from Juneau Douglas area on down toward, Wrangell, Metlakatla, also these inside water areas. And that's for increasing winds this evening, overnight tonight, into at least midday tomorrow. That'll increase the wind gusts from the north-northeast with high pressure building over the Northwest Territories and the Yukon. Some lower pressure down to the south. That's really tightening the gradient up there. So winds gusting 70 to 75 miles an hour the way it looks at this point in time. And that's going to dry it out considerably here over the northern southeast coast. And it's going to stay less windy and on the wet side down to the south. Otherwise, up here we have a lingering winter weather advisory that's out until 3 a.m. Saturday morning up here for the Kobuk Valley. And the greater Ambler area could see another little bit of snow and some gusty winds blowing that around, reducing visibilities. And then by tomorrow morning should be over. Otherwise, not too bad over the remainder of the state. No watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere over the interior, Arctic coast, or southern Alaska, or even the Aleutians. Satellite imagery showing a lot of moisture here associated with the front pushing up and across the southern southeast coast. Had some heavy rain today at Ketchikan and the southern panhandle, about 0.6 of an inch falling at Klawock. And that's a 12-hour amount ending at 3 p.m. Far greater amount fell at Ketchikan, 2¼ inches in the 12-hour period. And Metlakatla had 1¼ inches, and then Shelter Cove, northeast of Ketchikan, had just under 2 inches, and then that tapers off to about 1/3 of an inch or so here over the central panhandle in areas, and then like Juneau didn't get anything at all, already into the clearing area there. Clearing in the Gulf of Alaska here, high pressure, Arctic high building over the Northwest Territories and into the interior. Drying it out and much colder up here to the north and northeast than it is over southern Alaska, Bristol Bay area, as well as the Panhandle. Otherwise, we had a little bit of light snow with that swirl of clouds here over the Bering Strait area, kind of moving back to the west, that being blown westward on those gusty east winds that gusted as high as 40 miles an hour, Unalakleet and eastern Norton Sound today, out of the east. And also the interior seeing some gusty winds, especially with any elevation like Indian Mountain, seeing gusts 35 to 40 miles an hour. Also the eastern Arctic coast up there, kind of a windy day with flurries and areas of fog and low clouds with east winds gusting 30 to 40 miles an hour. And winds on the increase here around Northway and through the Alaska Range, Delta Junction, seeing east winds east to southeast, gusting 40 to 45 miles an hour, and not much of an increase in the wind yet here. Starting to pick up Prince William Sound, Potato Point seeing gusts of 30 miles an hour to the northeast. Now continue to increase tonight. Otherwise, the light rain over Kodiak will change to scattered showers here. Not much different from what you saw today. Precipitation amounts are pretty light, no more than about 1/10 of an inch in a couple of areas, generally less. And that'll be the case tonight, actually tending to taper off. Still that moist southeast flow, though, coming up right across the Gulf there, right into the Kodiak Island area and the southwest interior here. And some scattered showers around the low today for tonight. Let me jump ahead there. Same thing here going on like today, or tonight like today there, with periods of light rain or showers, Kodiak Island, and nothing heavy. Mixed rain condition here along the southwest coast, freezing rain over now for the Kuskokwim Delta area, and at least for the most part, and high pressure building with, you can see the very tight gradient here all over the northern central panhandle due to this persistent low hanging west of Port Alexander, and then that high up to the north, pretty massive high with a good ridge extending westward, pushing the cold air into the eastern central interior, and not so cold on the Arctic coast. And that's starting to spill into the Copper River Basin. Of course, skies clearing today down in northern Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound area. and then some light snow up here, the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, and Seward Peninsula. Rain beginning to push into the western Aleutians with that front that's not all that active, and it'll continue to slide eastward, bringing some light precipitation with it, periods of rain, fog, band of IFR associated with it for flying conditions. And winds really not much of a factor with that at all. Nothing more than maybe 20 to 25 miles an hour, maybe gusts of 30 there coming into AKwx. And stays dry for Atka up to Pribilofs right on the edge of this moisture field here. And this front will spread more rain, light rain, nothing heavy at all with this next system down here for the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. Continued southeast flow. Look for some showers tomorrow for the Kodiak Island area, and maybe possibly the south coast of the Seward Peninsula. Otherwise, this northerly winds, they'll begin to actually diminish tomorrow afternoon as the gradient starts to relax. Even the northern panhandle here tomorrow afternoon got less of a gradient we'll have tonight and early tomorrow as the high begins to slide off to the east. And this low fills a little bit, but stays dry and cold over the central eastern interior areas from the Copper River Basin on out to the North Slope. Outlook for Sunday, not a lot of change here over the eastern side. Still some east wind breezes there, Delta Junction along the north side of the Alaska Range. And that could result in some blowing and drifting snow if enough had fallen there. But that's nothing really serious considering the time of year it is. And mostly dry, or will be dry over the southeast coast, mostly clear over the panhandle. Could see some lingering clouds probably through the afternoon there over the southern areas. And then a little bit of moisture starts to work back up in this southeast flow coming up from Kodiak Island, pushing northward there through Cook Inlet. Showers mostly western Cook Inlet. I think it'll be pretty much concentrated along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range on down. Same pattern there for the Aleutian Range. Probably maybe some clearing for the east side of Kodiak Island, Chiniak, Marmot Bay, Zinke, Fognak Island, but better chance of moisture in Shelikof Strait, and pretty unsettled here, the Alaska Peninsula up to the Kuskokwim Delta coast, Nunivak Island with rain or snow, light rain or snow, a little breezier. Could see gusts 30 miles an hour, say at Cape Newenham, and pretty wet here with this low near the Pribilofs. That'll swing a trough through the eastern Aleutians. So pretty cloudy, wet day, but again, wind's not a problem. Better conditions coming partly, maybe to mostly sunny for the western Aleutians there. With, of course, that implies good VFR for the flying. Of course, lower conditions with this weak system farther to the east, and maybe a little bit of rain and snow for St. Lawrence Island. And the western Seward Peninsula could also see a little rain and snow. And then this trough, pretty weak, but probably holding together enough to produce some light snow, definitely cloudy skies with maybe a chance of light snow along just about all of the Arctic coast except the extreme east side. And then it looks like this moisture definitely will hold to the southwest of the panhandle. See a sunny day here, winds not as strong, but still pretty breezy, a little on the cool side. Lows for tonight down that way, lower 30s in the north to lower 40s along the central and south coast areas there. Lower to mid 30s, south central Alaska, upper 20s to Sitina Valley, to 40s, mid 40s, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, below zero, northeast interior, and a little above zero on the Arctic coast, 0 to 10 above, 20 Seward Peninsula, and near 40 for the Pribilofs and Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow, lower 50s here for the Alaska Peninsula, near 50 Kodiak, lower 40s again, south central Alaska. And edging above zero, except for Arctic Village, staying at 7 below, but Eagle up to 1 and 6 at Fort Yukon, mid-teens there for the central Tanana Valley at Fairbanks, 12 for Tanana, and 45 to 50 for the Panhandle. And lows for Sunday morning, 0 to 10 above, we'll call it for the Arctic coast, and 15 or 10 to 15 to maybe 18 below zero in the northeast interior, with the 0 degree isotherm kind of just following the Alaska Range here south of the mountains in the teens, and still above freezing for Cook Inlet, portions of the Kenai Peninsula. Go for 32 at Palmer, maybe Anchorage, 35 Valdez, and mild there over the Panhandle, and lower 40s for the central Aleutians, followed by high Sunday afternoon, 5 below to 7 above, or 7 below to 7 above here in the northeast interior, lower teens in the Arctic coast. And again, lower 50s, Bristol Bay and the King Salmon area.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line of weather graphic for Saturday morning. Some lingering IFR and marginal VFR over the southern panhandle. Offshore flow here to the north makes it VFR. Gulf of Alaska, Prince William Sound, right on up much of the interior, on out to the Arctic Ocean. IFR from the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, down along the Yukon Delta coast, Nunivak Island, the Pribilofs, and then becoming mostly marginal farther to the west and south, narrow band of that weak system coming into the western Aleutians. IFR, south side of the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, up across the Barrens, and trying to get into Kamishak Bay, not quite making it, but some marginal VFR, at least to start, up along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. That should mostly be gone by late in the afternoon tomorrow. IFR, though, persisting around Kodiak, Alaska Peninsula. Bristol Bay, VFR, the interior, good VFR, and IFR holding here from the Bering Strait over the northern Bering, across the Pribilofs, Nunivak Island, marginal for the Yukon Delta, and much of the Seward Peninsula, but VFR, Arctic coast, southward into the Gulf of Alaska, and just some marginal VFR left over the southern panhandle. And then for Sunday morning, that's gone. Nothing but VFR for the southeast coast, Gulf of Alaska, central interior, east side. Heading out to the west here, still have some areas of marginal VFR making their way inland here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, over to about Dillingham, Togiak Bay, Seward Peninsula, western Arctic coast, IFR just along or off the coast there, and still that persistent IFR zone here, northern Bering, St. Lawrence Island, Nunivak Island, to about the Pribilofs, becoming VFR out over the western Aleutians. And for Sunday afternoon, that VFR zone edges eastward a little bit to about Atka, definitely ADAC on westward, marginal for the Pribilofs now. You're kind of right on the edge there. St. Paul marginal, or St. Paul IFR, St. George marginal, Nunivak Island still IFR, but kind of shrinking there. And some areas of marginal VFR possible here along the Yukon River Valley area there. But the upper flats, good VFR holding through the eastern interior, Prince William Sound, and the southeast coast. And we got some marginal VFR trying to work up into southern Cook Inlet here, southern Kenai Peninsula, eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. Passes for tomorrow, or for throughout the day tomorrow, Anaktuvik and Adigan, both VFR. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR for those passes as well. In fact, possible marginal VFR to start, but that'll be early on, won't last long if it's not VFR the entire day. Rainy, though, will be VFR all day Saturday. And windy VFR. Isabel, same forecast. Ceilings visibility is unlimited from Antasta, Isabel, Tanita, and Portage even. Looks good, VFR. And definitely with that strong north winds, offshore flow for the Chilkoot and White passes, VFR, but probably a little on the bumpy side. And for the freezing levels here, 2,000 feet over the northern southeast coast, about 8,000 down south, still pretty warm air aloft. And even over the western interior, central and western interior, 6,000 feet, 4,000 feet, all the way up on the Arctic coast at the surface, right up to the Bering Strait. But here down a lot farther to the south, northern Cook Inlet along the North Gulf Coast tomorrow morning. And then some warmer air sliding northward ahead of that next weakening front pulling into the western Aleutians. Icing, a little bit of possible icing associated with that front. Nothing very serious, just probably some areas of light to very isolated moderate here above 6,000 feet. Just a threat here for Kodiak Island, really probably an over forecast by dropping that in there. Better chance, though, will be here over the southeast coast, southern areas with that lingering upper level low both at the surface and aloft. And for the jet stream here, it doesn't really show up. It's right there, a little circulation. Otherwise, the main jet cutting in across the Queen Charlotte's about 110 knots. One branch breaking off, coming up over the upper ridge over the interior tomorrow, 40 to 50 knots. And 9,000 feet, 30 to 40 knot winds coming across the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay. 25 for Nunivak Island. South to southeast, 20 to 25 knots over the central eastern interior areas, 30 knots out of the southeast over the southern panhandle. Westerlies 25 there for the Aleutians. And at 3,000 feet, 25 knot winds kind of around this low center there, not too widespread. 5 to 15 here for the eastern Aleutians, ADAC to the Alaska Peninsula. Then you pick it up about 20 to 25. Pretty light over the interior, 5 to 15, maybe 20 knots. and turbulence shaping up. Occasional moderate chop, northern panhandle, right on up to the western Brooks Range.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider, and joining me again is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. Thanks again for joining us, Cindy.
Thanks for having me back, Dave.
Sure thing. And I love saying Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska's National Weather Service because that's not weather. Why is the Tsunami Program part of the National Weather Service?
Well, it's because the Weather Service absolutely rocks at warning people for every kind of, devastating natural hazard.
The mission of the Weather Service is to protect life and property. And so how does the Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska, which is a very unique office, again, within the Weather Service, it's not weather, how do those folks help us protect life and property?
The National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer is a national warning center, and we analyze seismic traces 24/7 all around the world. So when there's an earthquake anywhere on the planet, we see it and analyze it within minutes.
Within minutes, and
Within
there's
minutes.
actually a goal to have it under, was it 5 minutes?
If there is a tsunami warning to be issued for continental America, we must get that out, or shoot to get that out in 5 minutes.
Okay. Now that's not something I have ever learned to do, so I know it would be a struggle for me to do that under probably hours, but it is fascinating to watch, and the office is open on a regular basis for tours, right?
Absolutely, come by Friday.
Okay.
Yep, every Friday at 1, 2, and 3 p.m. They're open public free tours. And it's the most interesting place on the planet. You really should check it out.
Okay, and the office team is made up of people that are earth scientists, not meteorologists or atmospheric scientists. Talk about some of the types of people that work there.
Right, we are out of place in our National Weather Service, but we are geologists, geophysicists, oceanographers. We even have an astrophysicist on board, computer software architects, electronic technicians that are brilliant and innovative. Our software is all written in-house. Our instrumentation is designed in-house. So it's a really, really unique place, and it's just a couple handfuls of people that work there. So
sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ways to get a tsunami alert message is on Twitter.
Right.
And I can follow the Twitter address, and we'll put that up on the screen for you there. But it's usually a very quick message that tells you initially what the magnitude of an earthquake could be and about where its epicenter was. What are some of the other ways that you can get that alert message?
Well, Twitter's my favorite too.
Yeah.
And you don't even need a Twitter account to receive it. So
That's
it just comes in like an SMS message. But you can also receive it via email, weather radio, of course, the crawler on your television screen, on the internet, Google Alerts, marine radio if you're out in harbors and boats. Actually, marine radio is probably...
Yeah, it is a good one.
That's our partnership with the Coast Guard. We're really grateful for that, absolutely. But there's a variety of ways in dissemination.
Okay.
And locally, excuse me, I'm sorry, but locally in the communities, the sirens will go off as well.
Right. So lots of different ways to get that very important message very quickly when that matters to you. One of the ways that the Warning Center practices with communities is a test on a yearly basis, right?
Right.
How does that work?
Thanks for bringing that up. It's a controversial issue, but it's super important to help us warn better and really serve Alaskans. So the week of March 27th, the commemoration of the 1964 event, for that week we have a Tsunami Preparedness Week every year. We like communities to get out and do drills and practice and do everything we can to raise awareness. And part of that is a live code test where we actually issue the warning message live and we activate the emergency alert system, which means sirens go off, the TV crawler happens, and it's a test.
We're doing everything that would normally happen without the real threat of the tsunami, just to practice as much as possible.
Right, and this is a major partnership with the State of Alaska, Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Emergency Operations Center, and the Alaska Broadcasters Association. Without the media, we wouldn't be able to do this. So the three groups really work tightly together to do our best to warn, educate the public that this is happening so they don't wonder and get scared about it. It has been remarkable what we've learned. I mean, it pretty much breaks somewhere every time, but then we fix it. and it gets better. So a quick example is just a few years ago, we used to, when we issued a message, it would activate the entire state.
Right.
Right? I mean, Kotzebue, Nome, Bethel, everybody would be in tsunami warning. And so now we can regionalize it to where the actual event is taking place.
Right.
That's pretty huge.
Right, right. So identifying points of failure and also points of success, and making sure we continue down that successful path so that folks are warned as quickly and accurately as possible.
Absolutely. And, you know, to get our communities involved to prep themselves, prep their businesses, prep their tourism, prep their schools, you know, just make this an annual thing they need to be doing.
Right. So as citizens wanting to be prepared, we should be prepared to learn more about that test that's happening usually toward the end of March every year.
Right, and you should be happy that it's happening.
Right.
Instead of upset. Definitely be happy that it's happening.
Right. Just as we test tornado sirens in tornado country, we also have to test the tsunami program as well.
Right, because there isn't enough time. You know, for a local tsunami, the wave will arrive in less than 2 minutes. So it's super important that people know what to do.
Very good. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for helping us know more about the Tsunami Ready program and the test. And the Tsunami Warning Center is a very unique and very important job in the National Weather Service that is just fascinating to me every time I visit the office. So
It's the only one for the continent. You really should come check it out.
it's an international effort.
Yes.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Dave.
And thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, you can see still extending way up here to the north with that wedge, but over the next 5 days, expecting it to grow quite a bit here back west and southwest here over the Chukchi Sea, and also coming down from the northwest up there over the Beaufort Sea by about maybe 40 nautical miles. And the ice along the coast here may be eviscerated over the next couple of days with those winds. Not really looking for any additional growth there. And it's pretty windy, but you could see maybe this area close off possibly here north of the Barrier Islands for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Coastal water forecasts, strong winds coming in actually this evening and tonight here for Lynn Canal Glacier Bay with sustained 45, gusts 60 knots for tomorrow, and Stevens Passage north 35, gusts 50 knots. Of course, you know, the capes out here will see the highest gusts, and you all know who you are. Otherwise, south winds 25 there for Clarence Strait, and then northeast 25 to 30 here along the south coast, 40 knots out of the northeast. That'll dry it out, make for a sunny afternoon there for the north coast with 12-foot seas, east 25 there south of Yakutat. And then for Sunday, north 30 knots for Lynn Canal Glacier Bay. So coming down, gradient relaxing, still gale force gusts Stevens Passage, but sustained at 20. East winds now at 15 for Clarence Strait, and east-southeast 25 to 30. 30-knot winds there along the coast of Prince of Wales Island, seas 8 to 9 feet. And then winds diminish as you head north, down to 20 knots here for the extreme north coast, 6 to 7 foot seas. Prince William Sound, pretty light east winds tomorrow at 10 with 2-foot seas. And the eastern North Gulf Coast, 20 to 30 knot winds from the east, 20 knots from the east here for the western North Gulf Coast. Same thing for the Barren Islands. Southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, small craft advisories, northeast 25, 7 to 9 foot seas, northeast 15 with 4-foot seas for Northern Cook Inlet. And for Sunday, northeast 20 here for Northern Cook Inlet, so picking up a little bit, holding on to small craft advisories, Cook Inlet, and up to 30 knots now for Kamishak Bay with seas building to 10 feet. East 25, so we got small craft advisories, Barren Islands, western North Gulf Coast, the seas 7 to 8 feet in these areas, and 7-foot seas with an east wind at 20 knots there around Middleton Island, northeast at 10, staying light for Prince William Sound, seas no more than 2 feet. Shelikof Strait, northeast 20, otherwise east 15, east side of Kodiak. Small craft advisories here, Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev, seas 8 to 9 feet. East 20 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, back up to 25 knots from the east, therefore Bristol Bay. And for Sunday, southeast 30 knots for Bristol Bay, and southeast 20 to 25 for the Alaska Peninsula, seas 7 to 8 feet. Castle Cape to Sitkinak up the east side of Kodiak Island there, east winds 25 knots, 9-foot seas, east winds 25 also for Shelikof Strait. And for the Fox Islands, well, call it light and variable. 10 knots here. Pretty good day tomorrow wind-wise for Unmak Island. But on Alaska Island, east-northeast 15 to 20. West 15 here for the Central Aleutians. Not too bad. Not bad at all. 6 to 7 foot seas. And then small craft advisories. That front pushes eastward. South winds ahead of the front, 30 knots. And then west winds, 30 knots behind the front. And then for Sunday, 20 knots there, Kiska on out to Shimia, 25 knots from Kiska up toward Adak, and then Central Aleutians in the zones east or west at 30, blowing to the east, and then Unmak Island, west-southwest 30 knots, so a windier day Sunday than we see Saturday on Alaska Island, south 25. And for the Kuskokwim Delta coastline here, east winds 25 knots, only 10 knots for the Pribilofs, 20-knot winds here, turn southeast to 20 for St. Lawrence Island. And for Sunday, east winds 20 knots, Norton Sound, 25-knot winds there for St. Lawrence Island, 30 knots from the east-southeast along the southwest coast, east 30 for St. Matthew Island, down to 15 knots for the Pribilofs. Tomorrow, less wind on the east side here, central coast south 20, east-southeast on the eastern coast. Small craft advisories on the west side to pick up to 30 knots from Cape Beaufort all the way down to Wales. Outlook for Sunday, west winds 20 knots, 25-knot winds for small craft advisories, extreme eastern Arctic coastline there, and 20 knots here, Wales up to Cape Beaufort. For tonight, clear and colder here over the interior with increasing winds, Alaska range into the Copper River Basin, northern Panhandle, high wind warning out, say for the inside waters, Juneau down to Ketchikan.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.